The water ran clear over Nia's hands, washing away copper-red clay. She sat alone by the creek at the eastern boundary of San Carlos Reservation, her fingers moving in patterns her grandmother had taught her before the soldiers came. 28 years old, and she could count on one hand the number of people who still looked her in the eye. The scars on her palms caught the afternoon light. 3 parallel lines on each hand made with her own blade during the mourning ceremony. The Apache way demanded visible grief when a husband died. What the way did not account for was bearing a child whose gray eyes marked him as other, in a world that demanded absolute belonging. Nia lifted her gaze to where Ka played at the edge of the water building small dams from river stones. 8 years old, with skin lighter than his mother's, and hair that held traces of brown instead of pure black. The boy hummed while he worked a tuneless sound that reminded her of his father, not the warrior who had claimed him, but the man who had created him in violence one brutal afternoon when she was 19. She had never told Ka the truth about his conception. How could she explain to a child that love and shame could occupy the same space in a mother's heart? A crow called from the cottonwood tree behind her. Ka looked up, his gray eyes finding hers across the distance. He smiled, gap-toothed and innocent, and Nia felt her chest constrict with fierce protection mixed with fear. The other Apache children called him half-breed when the adults were not listening. She gathered her things into the worn leather bag she had made from deer hide. The Indian agent never looked at her when they made exchanges. He pushed supplies across his desk like they might contaminate him, took her goods without comment, and turned away before she left his office. Nia called to Ka in Apache. Time to go. The boy abandoned his stones without complaint, splashing through the shallow water to reach her side. His feet were bare despite the September chill beginning to settle into Arizona territory. They walked toward the small wickiup she had built outside the main reservation camp. Not quite Apache enough to live among her people, not white enough to exist anywhere else. The space between worlds was narrow and lonely, but it was hers. The sun hung low when she saw the smoke, not from her camp, closer to the white settlements. She stopped walking, her hand instinctively finding Ka's shoulder and pulling him close. Something was wrong with that smoke, too frantic, too scattered. She should not care. White settlers' troubles were not her concern. But Ka was looking at the smoke too, his small face troubled. And she thought of the missionary woman who had once given them bread when they were hungry, not because she wanted to convert them, but because she had seen a mother and child in need. Nia changed direction, moving toward the smoke instead of away from it. They found the source a quarter-mile from the main road. A young boy lay in the dirt near a grove of mesquite, his face pale and sweating despite the cooling evening air. His horse stood nearby, reins dragging, eyes rolling white with distress. The boy could not have been more than 10 years old. Nia approached carefully, watching for other riders. White people did not take kindly to Apache appearing suddenly, even those trying to help. She knelt beside the boy and saw immediately what had happened. 2 puncture wounds on his left calf already swelling and discolored. Rattlesnake. Ka hung back, uncertain. His mother had taught him to be invisible around white people. Invisible was safe. Nia worked quickly, pulling her knife from her belt. She cut the boy's pants leg, exposing the wound fully. The flesh was hot and angry. She had perhaps 15 minutes before the venom reached his heart. The boy's eyes fluttered open, blue eyes unfocused with pain and fear. He tried to speak, but only a whimper emerged. Nia spoke in English, her accent thick but clear. "Be still, I help." She did not wait for permission. Her mouth went to the wound, sucking hard, spitting the blood and venom mixture into the dirt. Again. The boy cried out, trying to pull away. She held his leg firm, her grip iron, despite her slender frame. Ka appeared at her side, his small hands reaching into her medicine bag without being asked. He handed her the pouch of ground yarrow root and the small clay jar of honey they had traded 3 rabbit pelts to obtain. Nia made a paste, her fingers moving with practiced speed. She packed the wound, then bound it tightly with strips of cloth. The boy was shaking now, going into shock. She heard the thunder of hooves. A man came around the bend at full gallop. His horse lathered and wild-eyed. He was big, with shoulders that spoke of hard labor. Dark hair shot through with gray at the temples, lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun, and worry in equal measure. He saw his son on the ground, and Nia kneeling over him with a bloody knife in her hand. His face went through a rapid series of expressions: shock, fear, rage. His hand dropped to the revolver at his hip. Nia did not move. She had learned long ago that running from white men only made them more certain of your guilt. She raised her empty hand slowly, palm out. "Your son," she said carefully, "rattlesnake bite. I remove poison. He need water, need warm." The man's hand remained on his gun. His eyes moved from her face to Ka, standing several feet away, then down to his son. The boy was conscious enough to speak now, his voice thin and reedy. "Papa, she helped. The snake got me by the rocks. She helped." The father's hand slowly moved away from his weapon. He dismounted and crossed to his son, kneeling opposite Nia. He examined the wound, the bandaging, then looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. "How bad?" His voice was rough, like stones grinding together. "Bad if we not act fast. I take poison out, but venom still in blood. He need medicine. 3 days maybe fever come. He need watching." The man gathered his son into his arms with surprising gentleness for someone so large. The boy groaned, but did not cry out. Tough kid, raised hard, but raised with love. "The doctor in town," the man said, but there was doubt in his voice. Nia stood brushing dirt from her skirt. "Town doctor good with bullet and bone, not good with snake. Snake need Apache medicine." The man looked at her fully then, really looked. She met his gaze steadily, refusing to lower her eyes, despite every survival instinct screaming at her to show deference. She was asking him to trust her with his child's life. She would not do it from a position of cowering. Whatever he saw in her face must have been enough. He nodded once sharply. "My ranch, 8 miles north. Can you help him there?" It was not quite a request, not quite a demand. A desperate father willing to make a deal with anyone who might save his son. Nia glanced at Ka. The boy's eyes were wide, but he nodded. They had nowhere else to be. "I help," she said. The man lifted his son onto his horse, mounting behind him. He looked down at Nia and Ka standing in the dust. "Can you keep pace?" Nia almost smiled. She had walked more miles than this man had probably ridden in his entire life. "We follow." They moved through the desert as the sun descended, painting the sky orange and purple. The man rode slowly, careful of his son's condition. Nia and Ka followed on foot, their pace steady and tireless. The boy's name was Samuel, she learned. The father was Thomas Bridger, owner of a cattle ranch in the valley between the reservation and the white settlements. They arrived at the ranch as full dark settled. It was a humble place, well maintained, but showing the wear of too much work and too few hands, and a 2-story house with a wide porch, a large barn, several outbuildings. Cattle moved in the fields beyond like shadows. Light spilled from the windows of the main house, and Nia heard children's voices. Many children. A girl shouting. Twins arguing. A crash, then laughter. Thomas dismounted and carried Samuel toward the house. He paused at the bottom of the porch steps, looking back at Nia. "You coming?" She had not expected to be invited inside. Apache women did not enter white homes unless they were servants, and even then they used back doors. But this man seemed unconcerned with such boundaries, or perhaps he was simply too worried about his son to care. Nia climbed the steps with Ka close behind. They entered a world of barely controlled chaos. 4 children froze in various positions around the front room. 2 identical boys, perhaps 7 years old, stood on opposite sides of an overturned chair. A girl of maybe 8 sat in the corner with a book, her eyes enormous in her thin face. And standing in the doorway to the kitchen was a girl on the cusp of womanhood, 13 or 14, with her father's strong jaw and eyes that held too much responsibility for her age. This older girl took in the scene with one sweeping glance, her father carrying Samuel, the Apache woman and child standing just inside the door, blood on everyone's clothes. Her face went white, then red. "What happened, Samuel? Is he—" Her voice cracked. "Rattlesnake," Thomas said. "This woman helped him. Saved him, probably. She's going to make sure the venom doesn't kill him." The girl's eyes snapped to Nia. For a moment, naked hatred flashed across her young face. Then it was buried under a mask of cold politeness that was somehow worse. "An Apache," the girl said flatly. "A healer," Thomas corrected his voice hard. "Eliza, get water boiling. Maggie, Molly, move that couch under the window so we can lay Samuel down. Danny, fetch more firewood, now." The children scattered to obey even Eliza, though her movements were stiff with barely contained anger. Thomas carried Samuel to the couch and laid him down carefully. The boy was burning with fever now. Nia moved to Samuel's side without waiting for permission. She placed her hand on his forehead, feeling the heat radiating from him. The fever had come faster than she expected. His small body was fighting hard against the poison, but it might not be enough. She turned to Ka and spoke rapidly in Apache. "Fetch the willow bark and sage from the bag, the dried snake root, the clean cloth for bandages." Ka moved quickly, his hands sure. Thomas watched them work with intensity. Not threat exactly, something else. Evaluation. Trying to decide if he had made the right choice bringing them here. Nia mixed her medicine, speaking softly to Samuel in English. "You strong boy, you fight this poison. I help you fight." Samuel's eyes opened briefly, focusing on her face. "Are you really Apache?" "Yes." "Will you scalp me?" His voice was weak, but curious, not afraid. Nia felt something twist in her chest. "No scalp. I heal you. Then you tell me thank you in Apache language. I teach you words." The hint of a smile crossed Samuel's face before pain pulled it away. She worked through the night, changing poultices, getting willow bark tea into him, monitoring his breathing and heartbeat. Ka curled up in a corner and slept, but Nia stayed vigilant. She had seen strong warriors die from snake venom. Thomas stayed as well, sitting in a chair nearby, watching. Sometimes he dozed, his head dropping forward, then jerking back up as if afraid to miss something crucial. The other children were sent to bed, though Nia heard floorboards creaking overhead. They were watching, no doubt, curious about the strange Apache woman who had invaded their home. Around 3 a.m, Samuel's fever broke. The heat began to dissipate, his breathing deepened, and the deathly pallor of his skin gradually warmed. He would live. Nia sat back on her heels, feeling exhaustion crash over her like a wave. She had not realized how tense she had been, how much she had invested in this child's survival. He was nothing to her. A white boy she had met hours ago, and yet his death would have felt like a personal failure. Thomas was watching her with an expression she could not decipher. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, careful not to wake his son. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay what you've done." Nia shook her head. No payment, his right thing. "Still," he paused, wrestling with something. "My name is Thomas Bridger. That's Samuel. The oldest is Eliza, she's 13. The twins are Jack and Molly, they're 7. Danny is 8. And there's one more you haven't met yet, William. He's 4, sleeping upstairs. 5 children. A ranch to run. No wife anywhere in evidence. And the house had the particular kind of disorder that came from children raising themselves in the gaps between their father's attention." Thomas continued, the words coming out in a rush. "I need help. The children need help. Someone to cook, keep the house, make sure they don't kill themselves or each other while I'm working the ranch. I can pay in food and goods, and there's a small cabin at the edge of the property. It needs work, but it's solid. You could stay there, both of you." Nia stared at him. Of all the things she had expected, this was not among them. White men did not offer work to Apache women. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. Thomas met her eyes. Because I'm desperate. Because my children need someone, and I have no one. Because you saved my son's life, and I have to believe that means something. He paused. And because I watched you work tonight. You're capable and you're kind. That's all I care about. It was too simple. There had to be more to it. But looking at his face worn and honest in the lamplight, she could not find the deception. Your people in town, she said carefully, they not like Apache and White House. Let them not like it. This is my land, my children, my choice. Bold words. Nia had heard bold words before. They tended to wilt when confronted with actual consequences. But she thought about her small wickiup on the edge of the reservation, about the way other Apache looked at Ka with barely concealed disgust about the long, hungry winter approaching. She thought about these 5 children without a mother, about Thomas Bridger's tired eyes, about the way Samuel had asked if she would scalp him without any real fear. I think about it, she said. Today, I stay, make sure boy is good. Tomorrow I give answer. Thomas nodded. That's fair. He stood stretching his back with a grimace. There's a spare room off the kitchen. You and your son can sleep there tonight. The room Thomas showed them was small, barely large enough for the narrow bed and washstand it contained, but it was clean and dry and warmer than their wickiup. Ka crawled into the bed without complaint, already half asleep. Nia sat beside him, her hand resting on his hair. Through the thin walls, she could hear Thomas moving around the house, the creak of stairs, the quiet murmur of him checking on his other children, the sounds of a father doing his best in impossible circumstances. She should say no to his offer. Taking this position would put them in danger from both sides. The white townspeople would not tolerate an Apache living on a white ranch. The reservation Apache would see it as collaboration. She and Ka would be even more isolated than they already were. But as Nia sat in that small, clean room, listening to her son breathe steadily in sleep, she thought about what Thomas had said. You're capable and you're kind. No one had called her capable in years. Everyone saw her as diminished, lesser, broken. To be seen as someone with skills worth valuing was a gift she had not expected. And these children, 5 of them trying to grow up without a mother in a harsh land. She understood that particular loneliness. The hole in the center of your life where someone should be. Nia pressed her hand to her belly, to the place that had carried Ka, and would carry no other children. The white man who fathered her son had left her barren, the army doctor had told her bluntly, damaged beyond repair. She would bear no more children of her own, but perhaps she could help raise someone else's. She lay down beside Ka and closed her eyes, but sleep did not come easily. Her mind turned over the decision from every angle, looking for the trap. Men always wanted something from women, especially women they perceived as powerless. And yet, Thomas Bridger's eyes had held no lust when he looked at her. No calculation, just exhaustion and desperate hope. Dawn came gray and cold through the small window. Nia rose quietly, leaving Ka sleeping, and moved through the silent house. Samuel was still unconscious, but breathing deeply, the worst of the crisis passed. She checked his bandages, satisfied the wound was beginning to heal. In the kitchen she found the chaos of neglect. Dishes piled in the wash basin, flour spilled across the counter. A pot of something burned sitting on the cold stove. This was a house of children doing their best with tasks too large for them. Nia began to clean, not because she had agreed to anything yet, but because her hands needed work. She scrubbed dishes, swept the floor, started a fire in the stove, and began making coffee. The smell brought Thomas down the stairs, followed by the sound of children waking. They emerged one by one, stopping short when they saw Nia working at their stove. The twins stared with open curiosity. Danny watched warily from the doorway. Eliza came down last, and her face when she saw Nia was a mask of cold fury. "What is she doing?" Eliza directed the question at her father, not at Nia. "Making coffee, looks like," Thomas said mildly, "and cleaning up the disaster we've been living in." "We don't need her help. I can manage." Eliza's voice was tight. Thomas sighed. "Eliza, not now." "Yes, now. You brought an Apache into our house, into Mama's house. How could you—" The words hung in the air like smoke. Mama. So there had been a wife, a mother, and she was gone. Thomas's face softened. "Your mama would want you children cared for. She wouldn't care who did the caring. You don't know that. You don't know what she would want, because you weren't here when she needed you." Eliza's voice cracked. "You were out with the cattle when she was dying, and now you want to replace her with some savage." The words were meant to wound. They succeeded. Nia felt them land like physical blows. She set down the coffee pot carefully, her hands steady despite the tremor she felt inside. Thomas stood. "Eliza, that's enough." But Nia held up a hand, stopping him. She turned to face Eliza, fully meeting the girl's angry, tear-filled eyes. "I not replace your mother. No one can replace." Nia spoke slowly, making sure each word was clear. "I also lose. My husband, he die. Fever take him. I know empty place inside. I know anger at world." Eliza's face twisted. "Don't pretend you understand. Don't pretend we're the same. We not same. But we both know loss. That is same." For a moment something flickered across Eliza's face. A crack in the armor. Then it sealed shut again, and she turned and ran back up the stairs. A door slammed overhead. Thomas rubbed his face with both hands. "I'm sorry. She's been like this since Anna died, angry at everything and everyone." Anna. So that was the mother's name. "How long?" Nia asked quietly. 18 months. Consumption. It took her fast." Thomas's voice was flat. "She made me promise I'd take care of the children, that I wouldn't let them grow up wild. I'm trying, but I don't know how to be both father and mother." Nia understood then. This was not about hiring help. This was about a man drowning and reaching for anything that might keep him afloat. She made her decision. "I stay. I help with children, with house. But I need things clear." She counted on her fingers. "1, I, not your slave. I not your woman. I work you pay with food and cabin like you say. 2, Ka is my son. Anyone hurt him, I leave. 3, your daughter Eliza, she not want me here. That is her right. I not force myself. But I not leave because she angry." Thomas listened carefully, nodding. "Agreed. All of it. And one more thing." He paused. "My children will treat you with respect. And if the people in town give you trouble, they'll have to go through me first." Bold words again. Nia hoped he could back them up. She heard a small sound from the doorway. Ka stood there holding his old leather bag, his eyes moving between his mother and the white man. Nia switched to Apache. "We stay here for a while. Help these people. You must be good. Mind your manners. Stay close to me." Ka nodded solemnly. Then to her surprise he spoke in careful English. "Thank you for letting us stay." Thomas looked startled. "Your English is good, son." Ka ducked his head shy now. "Mama teach me. Say I need to know both ways. Apache way and white way." "Your mama's a smart woman." Thomas crouched to Ka's level. "How old are you?" 8. "Same as Danny. Maybe you two can be friends." Ka looked doubtful but did not argue. One of the twins, Jack, ventured closer. "Is it true Apache can track anything?" Before Nia could answer, Ka spoke up. "I can track deer. Mama teach me. Also rabbit and quail can read marks in dirt." Jack's eyes went wide. "Could you teach me?" Ka glanced at his mother, seeking permission. Nia nodded slightly. "If your papa say okay." "Can he, papa?" Jack was bouncing with excitement. "Can he teach me tracking?" Thomas smiled, the expression transforming his tired face. "I don't see why not. Once Samuel's better, you all can go out. Learn something useful." The ice was not broken, not fully, but perhaps a crack had formed. The day progressed in a tentative dance of boundaries and careful politeness. Nia cooked breakfast. The children ate hungrily, even Eliza, though she did not acknowledge Nia's presence. Samuel woke briefly, drank broth, and slipped back into healing sleep. Thomas went out to work the ranch, though he returned every few hours to check on his son. In the afternoon, Nia took Ka out to the small cabin Thomas had mentioned. It was rough with gaps in the walls and a roof that had seen better days. But the bones were good. With work, it could be comfortable. They were examining the structure when she heard footsteps. Thomas approached a hammer in one hand and a bag of nails in the other. "Thought I'd help patch this up before night. Gets cold out here once the sun sets." He worked quietly, efficiently, showing Nia how to fit boards to seal the gaps. She worked alongside him, learning his methods. Ka gathered kindling, piling it neatly near what would be their hearth. As the sun began its descent, Thomas paused. "Can I ask you something?" Nia tensed, but nodded. "Your husband, the one who died. Was he good to you?" The question surprised her. Personal, but not invasive. "Yes, he was good. He chose me when others did not. He claimed Ka as his son, though he knew the truth." Nia paused. "But he also loved his people more than he loved me. He died fighting for land already lost. I understand, but I am also angry. He leave us alone for honor that feed no one." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "The army did terrible things to your people, I know that. But I also know there were wrongs on both sides. Good people died because of decisions made by men far away." "Yes, this is truth." Nia met his eyes. "You fight in war." Thomas's jaw tightened. "I was a scout for the army, long time ago, before I met Anna, before I had children." He stopped working. "I did things I'm not proud of, things that haunt me. I left that life because I couldn't reconcile who I was becoming with who I wanted to be." There was more to that story. Nia could hear it in his voice, see it in the way his shoulders hunched as if under a weight. But she did not push. Everyone had ghosts. They finished the cabin in silence, the kind that felt companionable rather than uncomfortable. When it was done, Thomas helped them carry their few belongings inside. A blanket, some cooking implements, Ka's small collection of carved wooden animals, the leather bag that held Nia's medicine supplies. As Thomas turned to leave, he paused in the doorway. "I meant what I said this morning, about protecting you from town gossip. But I should warn you, it's going to get ugly. People talk, and in a place like this, talk can be dangerous." "I know danger," Nia said simply. "I live with it all my life." Thomas nodded slowly. "I suppose you have." That night, after Ka had fallen asleep, Nia sat alone by the small fire and let herself cry. Not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming weight of everything that had happened. She had saved a child, been offered work and shelter, found herself suddenly responsible for 5 white children who needed a mother but did not want her. And she had seen something in Thomas Bridger's eyes that made her deeply uneasy, not lust or cruelty, something far more dangerous. The beginning of respect, perhaps even the seeds of trust. Those things could hurt worse than hatred when they were eventually taken away. 3 days passed. Samuel recovered steadily. The younger children gradually lost their wariness of Nia. Jack and Molly followed her around asking endless questions. Danny observed from a distance, but accepted the food she prepared. Even Eliza's hostility began to soften at the edges, though she still would not speak to Nia directly. And then there was William. The youngest child had barely made an appearance in those first days. Nia had glimpsed him a few times, a small figure with Thomas's dark hair and delicate features. 4 years old, but silent as a stone. He watched from doorways and around corners, but never came close. On the 4th day, Nia was sitting on the porch steps in the late afternoon shelling peas into a bowl. Ka was with Jack and Danny learning to rope fence posts. The sound of children's laughter drifted across the yard. She felt a small presence nearby before she saw it. William had materialized beside the porch, standing so still she might have thought him a statue. He watched her hands move, fascinated by the rhythm of shell and pea. Nia did not acknowledge him directly. She had learned that the wounded ones, human or animal, needed space to approach on their own terms. She simply continued her work, humming an old Apache lullaby under her breath. After a long moment, William moved closer, then closer still. Finally, he sat down on the step beside her, maintaining a careful distance but no longer fleeing. Nia finished one pod and started another. "You want to help," she spoke gently, not looking at him. William did not answer with words, but he reached out one small hand and took a pea pod from the basket. His fingers fumbled with the opening. Nia demonstrated slowly, showing him how to split the seam. They worked together in silence for several minutes. Then William spoke, his voice so quiet she almost missed it. "Mama used to sing." "Different song?" Nia's hands stilled. The first words this child had spoken in her presence. Perhaps the first words he had spoken to anyone in some time. She understood instinctively that she needed to handle this moment with great care. "Your mama, she had good voice." A tiny nod. "My mama also sing. Apache songs. Different from white songs, but same heart. All mamas sing to children they love." William's lower lip trembled. "Mama's gone." "Yes, that is very sad. Your heart must hurt much." Another nod. Tears were welling in his eyes now, but not falling. Nia set down her bowl and turned to face him fully. "Is okay to be sad. Is okay to cry. Water from eyes wash pain so heart can heal. Not all at once, slow, but heal." William looked at her with those enormous dark eyes, and something in him broke. He launched himself into her arms, small body shaking with sobs that had been held inside too long. Nia caught him, held him, rocked him gently while he cried out his grief. From the doorway behind them, Thomas watched. Nia saw him over William's shoulder. Their eyes met. His face was a mixture of relief and heartbreak. His youngest son had not cried, not once, in the 18 months since Anna died. He had simply gone silent and small, disappearing into himself. And now here he was, sobbing in the arms of an Apache woman, finally letting go of the poison that had been killing him slowly from the inside. Thomas turned away, but not before Nia saw him wipe at his eyes. When William's tears finally subsided, he remained in Nia's arms, exhausted. She shifted him so he could rest more comfortably, his head against her shoulder. Her hand moved in slow circles on his back. "Better?" she asked softly. A small nod against her collarbone. "Good. You are a brave boy. Take much courage to show true feelings." William pulled back enough to look at her face. His eyes were red and puffy, but his expression held less pain than before. "Are you going to leave?" His voice was small and scared. Like Mama did. The question hit Nia in the center of her chest. This was what he feared. More loss, more people disappearing from his life. The world had already taught him that nothing stayed. "I not leave," she promised, even knowing the danger of such promises. "I stay, help your papa, help you and your brothers and sisters. I am here." William studied her face, trying to decide if adults could be trusted anymore. Then slowly, carefully, he nodded. "Okay," he whispered. They sat together in the fading light until Thomas called them in for supper. William took Nia's hand as they walked to the house, his small fingers wrapped trustingly around hers. A child's trust freely given was a rare and precious thing. At dinner, the family gathered around the table. Samuel was well enough to sit up now, though still weak. The twins chattered excitedly about tracking lessons. Danny asked Ka shy questions about life on the reservation, and William sat beside Nia, eating his food slowly, occasionally glancing up at her to make sure she was still there. Thomas watched it all with an expression Nia could not quite interpret. Relief, certainly. Gratitude. But something else, too. Something that made her pulse quicken and her defenses rise. He was looking at her not as hired help, but as something approaching a partner, in this enormous task of keeping his family alive and whole. That was dangerous territory. She was Apache, he was white. The gulf between them was filled with blood and history and pain too deep to bridge with good intentions. She needed to remember that. After dinner, as the children dispersed, Thomas approached Nia as she washed dishes. "Thank you," he said, "for William. He hasn't cried since his mother died. I was starting to worry the grief was going to break him from the inside out." Children carry pain different than adults. Need permission to let it out. Need to feel safe first. Nia scrubbed a plate, not looking at him. "He's safe here with you, but he need more than you alone can give. That is no shame. No person can be everything." "I'm starting to understand that." Thomas picked up a cloth and began drying the dishes she washed. They were in the middle of this domestic scene when the door burst open. Eliza stood there, her face flushed and her eyes bright with anger. "There are men coming. From town. I saw them from upstairs." Thomas's whole body went rigid. He set down the cloth and moved to the window, peering out into the darkness. "How many?" "3 horses, maybe 4 men." Thomas cursed softly. He turned to Nia. "Take Ka, go back to your cabin. Stay inside until I come get you." Nia shook her head. "If they come for me hiding, not help. Make you look guilty. These are not good men." "Then you stand with me." She met his eyes, refusing to show the fear coursing through her veins. "If I run every time white men come, I spend whole life running. Better to face what comes." Thomas looked like he wanted to argue, but there was no time. The sound of hooves was already audible. He grabbed a rifle from the rack near the door and stepped out onto the porch. After a moment's hesitation, Nia followed. 4 men rode into the yard, their horses kicking up dust in the lamplight. 3 were rough-looking ranch hands, but the 4th man was different. He sat his horse like a soldier, straight-backed, commanding, perhaps 50 years old, with a face carved from granite, and eyes that held no warmth. This was a man accustomed to power and certain of his righteousness. Captain James Whitmore. Even Nia recognized him. He had been the commanding officer at Fort Apache during the worst years of the Apache Wars. He was the embodiment of everything that had destroyed her people's way of life. And he was looking at her like she was a problem to be solved. "Bridger," Whitmore said, not dismounting. "Heard an interesting rumor in town. Heard you got yourself a squaw living on your property. Thought I'd come see for myself if a man I used to respect had lost his mind." The word landed like a slap. Nia kept her face impassive, but inside she felt the familiar twist of humiliation and rage. Thomas's voice was cold as winter. "Miss Nia is my employee. She works in my house caring for my children. Who I hire is none of your concern." "It's every decent person's concern when one of our own starts consorting with the savages." Whitmore's gaze moved to Nia. "These people killed our soldiers, killed our settlers, and you're letting one live in your house." "My son was dying from snakebite. She saved his life. That makes her more valuable to me than all your opinions combined." Whitmore's jaw tightened. "I see. She's worked her medicine on you, made you soft." He leaned forward. "Let me tell you something about these people, Bridger. They don't think like us, don't feel like us. You show them kindness and they see weakness." Nia had heard variations of this speech her entire life. The Apache as monster, as animal. The words used to hurt. Now they just made her tired. "I turn my back on you," she said clearly. "Not on these children who need help. You see difference." The men with Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. One laughed sharp and mean, but Whitmore's face went red. "You dare speak to me, woman? I've killed better Indians than you." "Then maybe you run out of good ones. Maybe only ones left are like me, just trying to live." Nia kept her voice level. "I do no harm here. I help. If that threaten you, maybe ask why." For a long moment, everyone was frozen in tense silence. Then Whitmore turned his attention back to Thomas. "You have 1 week to get rid of her. If she's still here after that, I'll make it my personal mission to see this ranch fails. No one in town will sell to you. No one will buy from you. You'll be ruined." He gathered his reins. "And Bridger, I thought you learned your lesson after Fort Apache, after what happened there. I thought you understood what happens when you sympathize with these animals." Fort Apache. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nia saw Thomas flinch as if struck, saw something in his eyes that looked like guilt and shame and old pain. Whitmore and his men rode away, leaving dust and threat hanging in the cool night air. Thomas stood very still, his hands gripping the rifle so hard his knuckles were white. Nia waited for him to speak, to explain, to tell her what Whitmore had meant. But when he finally turned to her, his face was shuttered closed. "You should go. Back to the cabin, it's late." What he mean, Fort Apache? Nothing. Ancient history. Not your concern. His voice was flat, emotionless. But Nia had not survived this long by ignoring warning signs. Something had happened at Fort Apache. Something involving Thomas Bridger. Something Captain Whitmore thought damning enough to use as leverage. She wanted to push, wanted to demand answers. But the set of Thomas's jaw told her this conversation was over. So she nodded once and walked back to her cabin, feeling his eyes on her back the entire way. Inside, Ka was waiting anxiously. "What happened? I heard horses." "Men from town. They not happy we are here." "Will we have to leave?" Nia looked at her son's worried face and thought about William crying in her arms, about Samuel asking to be taught Apache words, about the way Jack and Molly had started following her around, about Eliza's slowly thawing hostility, about Thomas standing on his porch with a rifle ready to defend her against his own people. "I not know," she said honestly, "but tomorrow's still coming whether we hear or not. We face tomorrow when it arrive." They lay down in the darkness, and Nia listened to the sounds of the ranch settling for the night. She had not planned to become part of this, had not wanted the complications and danger of entangling herself in a white man's household. But here she was, and leaving now felt impossible, not because Thomas would stop her, but because those children needed her, and she had already begun to care whether they thrived or merely survived. That caring was going to cost her. The question was whether the cost would be worth the price. Nia did not sleep well that night. She dreamed of fire and soldiers, of dead villages and crying children. She dreamed of Whitmore's cold eyes and Thomas's haunted face. And she dreamed of Fort Apache, though she did not know what had happened there. But she knew bone deep that whatever it was would change everything once the truth came to light. The first snow came 3 weeks after Nia moved into the cabin at the edge of Thomas Bridger's property. She woke to find the world transformed white and silent under a blanket that softened all the harsh edges of the desert landscape. Ka pressed his face against the window, his breath fogging the glass, watching the flakes fall with the wonder of a child who had seen snow before but never quite believed in its magic. "Mama, can I go out? After breakfast? After chores?" Nia was already dressed, already moving toward the door. The main house would need a fire-started breakfast, prepared children roused and fed, before Thomas headed out to check on the cattle. The work never stopped, but she had learned the rhythm of it, had begun to anticipate needs before they were spoken. The walk to the main house left fresh tracks in the unmarked snow. Smoke was already rising from the chimney. Thomas was awake, then probably had been for hours. The man seemed to run on determination, and coffee, sleeping little, and working until his body forced him to stop. Inside, she found him at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling in front of him, his eyes fixed on a piece of paper covered in numbers. Bills, probably, or calculations of feed and livestock, and all the mathematics that determined whether a ranch survived or failed. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression shifted, softened. "Morning. I started the fire." "I see. Thank you." Nia moved to the stove, assessing what needed to be done. The routine had become familiar, comforting even. "Snow come early this year." "Yeah, going to be a hard winter." Thomas rubbed his face with both hands. "I need to ride into town today. Pick up supplies before the roads get bad. Nia's hands stilled on the coffee pot. Town, where Captain Whitmore had given his ultimatum 3 weeks ago. Where people talked and judged and made decisions about other people's lives over whiskey and self-righteousness. "Is safe?" she asked quietly. Thomas met her eyes. "Probably not, but we need salt and flour, medicine, things I can't make or grow." He paused. "I was thinking maybe you and the children could work on lessons while I'm gone. Samuel's been asking when you'll teach him more Apache words." It was a deflection, and they both knew it. But Nia let it pass. "Yes, I teach. Samuel learned fast. Eliza also, though she pretended not to listen." A ghost of a smile crossed Thomas's face. "She's coming around. Slower than the others, but she's coming around." It was true. Eliza no longer left rooms when Nia entered them. No longer refused to eat food Nia prepared. The girl even asked questions sometimes carefully casual about how to tan leather or which herbs eased monthly cramps. Small cracks in the wall she had built around herself. The children came down gradually drawn by the smell of frying salt pork and cornmeal mush. William went straight to Nia, wrapping his arms around her legs, in the unself-conscious way of small children who had decided someone was safe. She touched his hair gently, still marveling at the trust he offered so freely now. Samuel appeared next, moving more easily now that the snake venom had fully worked its way from his system. "Papa, can Ka and I go check the snares after breakfast, see if we caught any rabbits? If Miss Nia says it's all right. And you stay close to the house. This snow's only going to get heavier." "I say is good," Nia confirmed. "But you take Danny also. 3 boys safer than 2. The twins tumbled down the stairs in a chaos of elbows and arguments, already bickering about something incomprehensible. Eliza came last, her hair braided neatly, her dress pressed. She had taken on the role of young woman of the house with fierce determination, as if perfect presentation could somehow prove she did not need help, did not need Nia. They ate together, the family and Nia, in a configuration that had become normal, without anyone quite noticing when it happened. Thomas at the head of the table, the children arranged by age down both sides, and Nia near the stove, close enough to be part of the gathering, but maintaining the boundary of employee rather than family member. Except William, who insisted on sitting next to her chair, and Samuel, who peppered her with questions in broken Apache testing his pronunciation, and the twins who had started calling her Nia instead of the Apache woman, which felt like a small victory. After breakfast, Thomas prepared for the trip to town. He checked his gun-loaded supplies into the wagon, moved with the careful deliberation of a man preparing for possible conflict. Nia watched from the porch, William clinging to her hand. Thomas climbed onto the wagon seat, then paused, looking down at her. "If anyone comes while I'm gone, anyone, you take the children and go to the cabin. Lock the door. Don't open it unless you hear my voice." "You think someone come?" "I think Whitmore's the kind of man who makes threats and keeps them. I think we've had 3 weeks of quiet, and that might be about to end." His jaw tightened. "Just be careful. Always am." He held her gaze for a moment longer, something unspoken passing between them. Then he snapped the reins, and the wagon lurched forward, carrying him toward town and whatever waited there. The morning passed peacefully. Samuel, Ka, and Danny checked the snares and returned triumphant with 2 rabbits, which Nia showed them how to skin and clean. The twins played in the snow, building what they claimed was a fort, but looked more like a lumpy pile of white. William stayed close to Nia, helping with small tasks, his presence a constant warm weight against her side. Eliza worked on mending in the front room, her needle moving with quick, angry efficiency. Nia joined her after the rabbits were prepared for dinner, bringing her own basket of clothes that needed repair. They worked in silence for a while, the only sound, the crackle of the fire, and the distant shouts of children playing. Then Eliza spoke, her voice carefully neutral. "How did you learn to speak English?" Nia considered the question the true answer. Missionary woman, on reservation. She teach reading, writing. I learned fast because I want to understand what white people say. Knowledge is protection sometimes. Did it protect you? Eliza's needle stabbed through fabric with unnecessary force. No, but it helped me understand why protection was needed. Eliza looked up at that, her eyes sharp and assessing. You're not what I expected. What you expect? I don't know. Someone more? Eliza struggled for words. Savage. That's what they call your people in town. Savages. Animals. Things that need to be removed. And now you think I am animal. The girl's face flushed. No, that's what's confusing. You're just a person. You cook and clean and take care of my brothers and sister like it matters to you, like they matter to you. They do matter. Nia set down her mending, giving Eliza her full attention. When I lose my husband, I also lose my place. Apache people, they see Ka and they see shame. White people, they see me and they see enemy. Your father, he offer us place where maybe we not enemy. Maybe we just people trying to live. That is gift I cannot repay. Papa needs help, that's all. It's not about being kind. Maybe. But needing help and accepting help from Apache woman, those are different things. He choose to accept. That take courage. Eliza's needle stilled. They're going to hurt him for it. People in town. They're going to make him pay for letting you stay here. I know. So why do you stay? Why not leave before it gets worse? Nia thought about William's small hand in hers, about Samuel's eager questions, about Thomas standing on his porch with a rifle willing to defend her against his own people, about the way even Eliza, angry and grieving Eliza, was slowly learning to see her as human. Because some things are worth the cost, and because running away not always protect. Sometimes standing still is braver choice. Eliza looked like she wanted to argue. Instead, she picked up her mending again, her movements less violent now. Mama would have liked you. She always said the measure of a person was how they treated children who weren't their own. It was the first time Eliza had mentioned her mother without anger. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and precious. Your mama sound like good woman. She was. Eliza's voice cracked. She was, and now she's gone, and Papa brought you here, and I wanted to hate you so badly. I wanted someone to blame. But you make William laugh, and you taught Samuel how to track, and you never get angry when the twins break things. You just stay, like we're worth staying for. Tears were streaming down Eliza's face now, the first she had cried in Nia's presence. The girl looked shocked by her own emotion, like she had not known the grief was still this close to the surface. Nia set aside her basket and moved to sit beside Eliza on the couch. She did not try to hug her, did not intrude on her space. She simply sat close, a warm presence waiting. Eliza's needle stilled. They're going to hurt him for it. People in town. They're going to make him pay for letting you stay here. I know. So why do you stay? Why not leave before it gets worse? Nia thought about William's small hand in hers, about Samuel's eager questions, about Thomas standing on his porch with a rifle willing to defend her against his own people, about the way even Eliza, angry and grieving Eliza, was slowly learning to see her as human. Because some things are worth the cost, and because running away not always protect, sometimes standing still is braver choice. Eliza looked like she wanted to argue. Instead, she picked up her mending again, her movements less violent now. Mama would have liked you. She always said the measure of a person was how they treated children who weren't their own. It was the first time Eliza had mentioned her mother without anger. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and precious. Your mama sound like good woman. She was. Eliza's voice held warmth now, not just pain. She was strong and kind, and I think she would understand why I'm starting to accept you. Tears welled in Nia's eyes. This was different from their first breakthrough, deeper, more settled. That mean much to me. I know. Eliza resumed her mending, but there was peace in her movements now. We're becoming family, aren't we? Even though neither of us planned it. Yes, I think we are. The afternoon wore on. The boys came in cold and wet and hungry. Nia fed them bread, and Honey dried them by the fire, sent them back out with warnings to stay where she could see them. The work was endless but satisfying in a way her isolated life on the reservation had never been. Here she mattered. Here her labor had visible immediate results. She was preparing dinner, cutting vegetables for stew, when she heard the horses. Not one horse, many horses, 6, maybe 7, coming fast. Nia moved to the window and felt her blood go cold. Captain Whitmore rode at the front of a group of men, his face set in grim determination. The 3 ranch hands from his previous visit were there, along with 3 more. One of them carried a torch despite the early hour, the flame bright against the white snow. Eliza appeared at her shoulder, looking out. "Papa's not back yet." "I know." Nia's mind raced. Thomas had told her to take the children to the cabin and lock the door. But the cabin was small wooden, and if these men decided to burn it, they would be trapped. And she would not let them burn her children. Her children. When had she started thinking of them that way? "Eliza, listen to me careful. Take William upstairs. Get twins also. Lock yourself in your room. Do not come out until I say, or until your papa come home." "What about you? What about Samuel and Danny and Ka? Boys are outside. They see horses, they hide. They know how." She gripped Eliza's shoulders. "I need to know you keep William safe. Can you do that?" Eliza's face was pale but determined. "Yes." "Good girl. Go now. Quiet. Fast." Eliza ran. Nia heard her gathering the twins, heard William's confused questions, heard the door to the upstairs room close, and the lock click home. The riders were in the yard now. Nia stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind her. She would meet them here, would not let them enter the house where the children hid. Whitmore dismounted, his movements deliberate and threatening. "Where's Bridger? Town. He come back soon." Nia kept her voice level, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "Good. Then we have time to have a conversation." Whitmore smiled cold and cruel. "About you leaving. About you going back where you belong before you corrupt these children any further with your savage ways. Children are safe, are fed, are happy. What corruption you speak of?" One of the ranch hands laughed. "Listen to it talk, like it's people." Nia forced herself not to react. "Mr. Bridger hire me. I work for him. You have problem, you talk to him." "Oh, we'll talk to him. But first we thought we'd make sure you understand the situation." Whitmore nodded to the man with the torch. "See, we can't have Apache living among decent folk. Sets a bad precedent. Makes other Indians think they can just wander onto white property and set up camp." "I not wander. I was invited." "Bridger's judgment is compromised. Probably you used some kind of Indian witchcraft on him. Got him all confused." Whitmore took a step closer. "So we're going to clear up that confusion. You're going to pack your things and your half-breed boy, and you're going to leave. Today. Now. And if I say no," Whitmore's smile widened, "then we'll have to encourage you. Maybe start by burning down that cabin you've been staying in. Make it clear you're not welcome here." Nia heard movement behind her. She turned to see Samuel, Danny, and Ka emerging from behind the barn where they must have been hiding. Samuel had his father's old hunting rifle in his hands, the one he barely knew how to shoot. The boy's face was set in lines too hard for his 10 years. "Leave her alone," Samuel said, his voice shaking but determined. "Samuel, no." Nia called. "Go back. Hide." "We're not hiding." Danny appeared beside his brother, holding a pitchfork like a weapon. "This is our home, and Nia belongs here." Ka said nothing, but he moved to stand with the other boys, his small face fierce with protective anger. Whitmore laughed. "Look at this. Children playing soldier. Son, put that rifle down before you hurt yourself." "My papa said anyone who threatens Nia threatens us." Samuel raised the rifle higher, though his arms were trembling with the weight. "And we defend what's ours." The situation was spiraling out of control. Nia could feel it in the way the men's hands moved toward their weapons, in the way Whitmore's amusement was curdling into genuine anger. One wrong move and people would die. Children would die. She stepped forward, putting herself between the boys and the men. "Please, I will go. Just do not hurt the children. They are innocent in this." "Nia, no," Samuel protested. "Is right choice," she said firmly, switching to Apache so the boys would understand the truth beneath her words. "I go now. Your father comes home. We find another way. But I will not let you die for me." She turned back to Whitmore. "I need time to gather my things, to say goodbye." "You have 10 minutes." Whitmore pulled out a pocket watch. "After that, we start burning." Nia moved toward the boys, taking the rifle gently from Samuel's hands. "Inside, all of you. Now. But now." She herded them into the house, closing the door behind them. Samuel was crying, angry tears streaming down his face. "We can't just let them send you away. Papa won't allow it." "Your papa not here, and I not let you get hurt fighting for me." Nia knelt down, gathering all 3 boys into her arms. "Listen to me. This not goodbye forever. This just goodbye for now, you understand?" "No," Samuel sobbed. "It's not fair. Much in life not fair, but we survive it anyway." She pulled back, looking at each of their faces. "You are brave boys, strong boys. You take care of each other. Take care of your sisters. And you remember what I teach you. About tracking about plants, about Apache words. You remember, and part of me stay with you always." Ka was silent, his face stricken. He had been through this before, been forced to leave places, leave people, but that did not make it easier. Nia pulled him close, speaking rapidly in Apache. "We survive this like we survive everything else. We are strong. We are Apache. And we do not let white men see us break." A knock on the door. "Time's up, squaw." Nia stood straightening her shoulders. She looked around the kitchen where she had cooked countless meals, at the front room where she had taught William to laugh again, at the stairs leading up to where the other children hid. She had been here less than a month. It felt like a lifetime. "I go now to cabin, get my things." She looked at Samuel. "When your papa come home, you tell him. Tell him I not run away. Tell him I was forced. He understand." She walked out of the house with her head high, refusing to show fear or sorrow to the men who had come to drive her away. Whitmore and his followers watched her cross the yard toward the cabin, their expressions triumphant and ugly. Nia was gathering her few possessions when she heard the new sound. More horses, coming fast, one horse ridden hard. Thomas. She ran to the cabin door and looked out. Thomas Bridger was riding into his yard like fury incarnate, his face dark with rage. He took in the scene at a glance. Whitmore and his men, the boys on the porch, Nia at the cabin with her belongings. He dismounted before his horse had fully stopped striding toward Whitmore with his hand on his gun. "Get off my land." "Now, Bridger, we were just helping you see reason. Helping you get rid of a problem before it got worse. The only problem I see is you threatening my family." Thomas's voice was deadly quiet. "And you've got about 10 seconds to get back on your horses and leave before I make you leave." "Your family," Whitmore laughed. "She's not family. She's a squaw you hired to cook and clean, and we're doing you a favor by—" He did not finish the sentence. Thomas hit him. One solid punch that sent Whitmore staggering backward. The other men reached for their guns, but Thomas already had his out, pointed at the nearest one. "I wouldn't. I'm fast and I'm angry and I've got nothing to lose." Thomas's hand was steady. "Now Captain Whitmore here is going to get up, and all of you are going to mount your horses, and you're going to leave my property. And if I ever see any of you near my home again, if you ever threaten my children or anyone under my protection again, I will kill you. Not wound you, not scare you, kill you. We clear—" One of the ranch hands spoke up, his voice uncertain. "Bridger, you got to understand, we're just trying to maintain order. Keep the races separate like God intended. God intended for children to have someone who takes care of them when they're sick, who teaches them and feeds them and makes them feel safe. That's what Nia does. And if you've got a problem with that, take it up with God. Now get out." Whitmore was on his feet now, blood streaming from his nose. His eyes were hot with humiliation and rage. "You're making a mistake, Bridger. I know things about you. About Fort Apache. About what you did there. You really want me to start talking. You want your children to know what kind of man their father really is." Thomas went very still. The gun in his hand did not waver, but something in his face cracked. Just a little. Just enough for Nia to see the old wound beneath. "Tell them whatever you want, but you do it from somewhere else. Because if you're still on my property in 60 seconds, I start shooting." Whitmore stared at him for a long moment. Then he spat blood into the snow. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. It's been over since the moment you threatened my family." The men mounted their horses and rode out, Whitmore casting one last venomous look over his shoulder. Thomas watched them until they disappeared over the rise. Then, and only then, did he lower his gun. He turned to find Nia standing in the cabin doorway, her bag still clutched in her hands. They looked at each other across the snowy yard, and the weight of what had almost happened hung between them. Thomas crossed to her in long strides. "Are you all right? Did they hurt you?" "I am fine. Boy's also fine. They try to protect me. Very brave." "They're idiots." But there was no heat in Thomas's words. "They could have been killed." "They are your children. Of course they are brave and foolish in equal measure." Something that might have been a laugh escaped Thomas, or maybe a sob. He reached out like he might touch her, then stopped himself, his hand falling back to his side. "I'm sorry. I should have been here. I should have—" "You cannot be everywhere. You cannot protect from everything." Nia set down her bag. "But you come back. You stand between me and them. That matter." "Of course I came back. Did you think I wouldn't?" "I think you are man who keepeth his word. I think you are man who stand up for what is right even when it is hard. I think—" She stopped, uncertain how to finish. "What?" Thomas stepped closer. "What do you think—" Nia looked up at him, at his face still flushed with anger and adrenaline, at his eyes searching hers for something she was afraid to name. The snow was still falling around them, blanketing the world in white, making the moment feel separate from time, suspended. "I think I am starting to understand why your children trust you, why they fight for you." She paused. "Why I also trust you." Thomas made a sound low in his throat. His hand came up slow and careful, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he cupped her cheek, his palm warm against her cold skin. "Nia, I need you to know something. You're not just hired help to me anymore. You haven't been for a while. He struggled for words. "You're essential. To this place, to my children, to me." Her breath caught. This was dangerous. This was crossing lines they had both been so careful not to approach, Apache and White. Employee and employer. Two people from worlds that had been at war. Two people who had every reason not to feel what was growing between them. And yet. "Thomas, A door slammed. They stepped apart quickly as the children came pouring out of the house. Samuel reached them first, throwing his arms around Nia's waist. "You're staying. Papa made them leave, so you're staying." "I am staying," she confirmed, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. The other children surrounded them, the twins talking over each other, Danny quiet but relieved, William clinging to her hand. And Eliza standing a little apart, her arms crossed, but her eyes soft. "Papa," Eliza said, "they're going to come back, or send others. We all know it." "Let them try." Thomas's jaw was set in stubborn lines. "This is our home. We decide who's welcome here, not Whitmore, not the town. Us." "Even if it costs you everything," Eliza challenged. Thomas looked at his children, at Nia, at the life they were building together against all odds. Some things are worth the cost. That night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Thomas came out to the cabin. Nia was sitting by the fire, unable to sleep, when she heard his knock. "Can I come in?" She opened the door. "Of course." Thomas entered, ducking his head under the low door frame. He looked around the small space she had made into a home. The blankets folded neatly on the bed, the herbs hanging from the rafters, Ka's carved animals lined up on a shelf. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "About Fort Apache, about what Whitmore was talking about." "You do not owe me anything." "Yes, I do." Thomas sat down heavily on the chair near the fire. 10 years ago, I was a scout for the Army. I was good at it. Too good, maybe. I could track anyone anywhere, and I didn't ask too many questions about why we were tracking them. Nia sat down across from him, waiting. She had known this story was coming since the night Whitmore first mentioned Fort Apache. Had known there was blood in Thomas's past. But hearing it still made her chest tight, with something between dread and understanding. There was a report of Apache warriors raiding ranches near Fort Apache, killing settlers. The Army wanted them stopped. I was ordered to find the camp where they were hiding and lead a unit there. Thomas stared into the fire. I found a camp. I led the soldiers there, and when we arrived, it wasn't warriors. It was families, women, children, old men. The warriors had left days before to hunt. We'd found the ones they'd left behind. Nia felt her blood go cold. What happened? The lieutenant in charge, he said they were all guilty, that they supported the warriors, sheltered them, so they deserved what was coming. I argued. I told him these were innocents, but he outranked me, and he gave the order. Thomas's voice was rough breaking. 32 people died that day, mostly women and children, and I led the soldiers right to them. The silence stretched between them heavy with the weight of old blood and unforgivable things. Nia thought about her own losses. The village her husband had died defending, the friends she had lost to soldiers and disease and despair. She should hate Thomas Bridger. She should walk away from this cabin and this ranch and never look back. He had just confessed to being part of the machine that had destroyed her people. But when she looked at his face, she saw genuine anguish, genuine remorse. This was not a man proud of what he had done. This was a man haunted by it, broken by it in ways he was still trying to repair. "You were following orders," she said quietly. "That's not an excuse. That's what cowards say to sleep at night. I made a choice to be a scout. I made a choice to lead them there. The blood is on my hands." "Yes, it is." Nia would not lie to him about this, would not absolve him when absolution was not hers to give. "You helped kill my people. Maybe you helped kill people I know, people I love." Thomas flinched, but did not look away. "I know, and I understand if you can't stay here now. I understand if you hate me." "I do not hate you." The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. "I am angry. I am sad. But I do not hate you. You want to know why? Please." "Because that man who follow orders, he leave Army, he come here. He build life where he protect children, where he hire Apache woman even though town hate him for it, where he stand with rifle and protect me from men who want to hurt me." Nia leaned forward. That man trying to make amends, cannot change past, cannot bring back dead, but can make future different. That is what you do. Every day you make different choice than man you were. That doesn't make up for what I did. No, nothing make up for that. But it matter. It matter that you try. It matter that you teach your children to see Apache as people. It matter that you give me and Ka place where we belong. She paused. "You ask me if I can stay after knowing this. I ask, can you accept that I forgive you even though I should not? Even though my people would say I betray them by staying?" Thomas looked at her with something like wonder. "How can you forgive something like that? Because holding on to hate takes so much energy. Because you not same man who did that thing. Because my son need home and your children need mother and we both need each other more than we need to keep fighting old war." Nia reached out and took his hand. "Because maybe if we can forgive, we can show others it is possible. We can be example of different way." Thomas looked down at their joined hands. Then slowly he raised hers to his lips and pressed a kiss to her scarred palm. It was not a kiss of passion. It was something deeper, more sacred, an acknowledgement of wounds shared and burdens carried together. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but I give it anyway. That is what forgiveness is. gift given even when not earned. They sat together in the firelight, holding hands, while the snow fell outside and the night deepened around them. There would be more challenges ahead. Whitmore would make good on his threats. The town would turn against them more completely. The road they had chosen was hard and dangerous. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And sometimes that was enough to face whatever came next. Winter settled over the Bridger Ranch like a long exhale, cold and relentless. The confrontation with Whitmore had changed something fundamental. The pretense was gone now. Everyone knew where Thomas Bridger stood, and the town responded with calculated cruelty. The general store refused to sell him supplies. The blacksmith turned him away when he needed horseshoes. At church, families shifted away from his children like they carried disease. Even the children who had once played with Samuel and Danny now threw rocks and shouted slurs when they saw them in town. But Thomas did not bend, did not send Nia away. If anything, he drew her closer. She moved from the cabin into the main house 2 weeks after the snow came. Not into Thomas's room. Propriety still mattered, even when everything else was falling apart, but into the small room off the kitchen that had been her refuge that first night. The cabin became storage for tools and extra supplies, a symbol abandoned. Ka moved in too, sharing a room with Samuel and Danny. The three boys became inseparable, a unit unto themselves. They hunted together, studied together, got into trouble together. And when town children called Ka half-breed, Samuel and Danny stood on either side of him, fists raised, ready to fight. Nia watched this new family take shape and felt something she had not felt since before her Apache husband died. Hope. The dangerous kind. The kind that made you believe things could be different. 2 weeks had passed since Thomas proposed, 2 weeks of careful courtship that felt both eternal and fleeting. The letter from Whitmore had arrived the day after, but Thomas had set it aside with a grim smile. "Let him summon us," he'd said. "We'll face him as husband and wife." The courtship itself was unlike anything Nia had experienced. Thomas brought her wildflowers he found growing in sheltered spots, their blooms impossibly bright against the snow. He carved her a set of combs from deer antler, the bones smooth and beautiful in her hands. He asked her opinions on ranch decisions and actually listened when she answered, implementing her suggestions about rotating pastures and treating a sick cow. In the evenings, after the children were in bed, they sat together by the fire. Thomas asked questions about Apache culture, struggling with pronunciations, but trying. Nia taught him about the significance of the 4 directions, about how Apache marriages were conducted, about the responsibilities of a husband in her culture. In Apache way, husband must provide for family, yes, but also must listen to wife, must respect her counsel. Apache women have much power in family decisions. We are not property, we are partners. "I can do that," Thomas said. "I want to do that." "Good, because I have many opinions and I not keep them quiet." Thomas laughed. "I've noticed. It's one of the things He stopped, the words catching in his throat. One of the things I love about you." He said it quickly, as if afraid he would lose his courage. "I know it soon. I know we're still figuring this out. But I need you to know. I love you, Nia. Not in spite of your strength or your opinions or your Apache heritage. Because of all of it. All of you." Nia felt tears prick her eyes. "I am starting to love you too. Is frightening. I did not think I would feel this again after I lose my husband. Did not think any man would want broken Apache woman with half-breed son. You're not broken. You're the strongest person I've ever met." Thomas took her hands. "And Ka is a gift. A brave, smart, kind boy who deserves every chance at happiness. I meant what I said. When we marry, he becomes my son. Fully, legally. With all the rights and protections that come with being a Bridger." The wedding was set for 2 weeks after the proposal, just days before the scheduled court hearing. If they were legally married, Whitmore's accusations of immoral cohabitation would be meaningless. But there was a problem. No pastor in town would agree to perform the ceremony. They gathered the family in the front room that evening. 6 children ranging from 4 to 13 watching with curious eyes as their father and Nia stood before them, hands joined. Thomas spoke first, his voice steady. "Your mama Anna was a good woman, the best I've ever known. Nothing and no one will ever replace her. But she's been gone for 2 years now, and this family needs someone to help hold it together. More than that, I need someone. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am." He squeezed Nia's hand. "Miss Nia has agreed to let me court her. And if the courting goes well, if she decides she can tolerate me permanently, I'm going to ask her to marry me, to become my wife and your stepmother. But this is your home too, and your voices matter. So I'm asking, not telling. What do you think?" Silence. The children looked at each other, processing. Then William spoke, his small voice clear in the quiet. "Will she leave if she's your wife, or will she stay forever?" Nia knelt down to his level. "If I marry your papa, I stay forever. That is what marriage means. Forever family." "Good." William threw his arms around her neck. "I want you to stay forever. I love you." The words hung in the air. "I love you." From this child who had barely spoken for 18 months after his mother died, who had finally found his voice again because Nia had taught him it was safe to feel. "I love you too, little one." Nia whispered, her voice thick with tears. The twins were next, both talking at once in their usual chaotic way. "Does this mean Ka is officially our brother? Can we call you Mama? Will you still teach us tracking? Can we have a big wedding with cake?" Nia laughed through her tears. "Ka is your brother if you want him to be. You can call me what feel right to you. Yes, I still teach tracking. And maybe we have cake if we can find someone to make it." Samuel was grinning. "This is the best news, Papa. The very best." He turned to Ka. "We're going to be real brothers, legal brothers." Ka nodded, unable to speak around the emotion in his throat. Real brothers, legal brothers, words he had never thought would apply to him. Danny, quiet as always, simply smiled and gave a small nod of approval. Only Eliza remained silent, her face unreadable. She sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on some point beyond the window. Finally, she stood up. "Can I speak to you alone?" She directed the question at Nia, not her father. "Of course." They walked out onto the porch into the cold evening air. Eliza wrapped her arms around herself, staring out at the darkening landscape. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. "I need to know something," Eliza said finally, "and I need you to be completely honest with me. Always. Do you love him, my father, or is this just practical? Just a solution to a problem?" Nia considered the question carefully. Eliza deserved the truth, not platitudes. "I do not know if what I feel is love yet. It is too new, too complicated by everything else. But I know I care for him deeply. I know I respect him. I know when he is late coming home from the fields, my chest gets tight with worry. I know when he smiles, I want to make him smile again. The love, I think it is growing, will grow, but it is not yet the big, overwhelming love from stories. Mama loved him like that at first, the quiet way. She said it was better than the loud kind because it was built on something solid." Eliza's voice cracked. "I miss her so much, every single day." "I know. And Eliza, you listen to me." Nia turned the girl to face her. "It is okay to miss her. It is okay to be sad that she is not here for this. You do not have to choose between loving her memory and accepting me. Both can be true at same time. Both should be true. I don't want to betray her. Allowing yourself to heal is not betrayal. Allowing your father to find happiness is not betrayal. Your mama would want you all to live, not just exist." Nia paused. "I not try to replace her. I just try to fill some of empty space she left. Different is not same as less." Eliza was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was small. "Will you be good to him, even when things get hard, even when the town makes life miserable. Yes, I promise, with everything I have. And will you be good to us, all of us? Not just the little ones, but me too, even when I'm difficult. Especially when you are difficult. That is when people need love most." Something in Eliza's face crumbled. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and hugged Naya tightly. "Okay, then I support this. But if you hurt my father or my siblings, if you make any of them cry, I will make you regret it." Nia hugged her back just as tightly. "I expect nothing less. You are a good daughter, good sister. Your mama raised you well." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other against the cold. When they pulled apart, both had tears on their cheeks. "Thank you," Eliza said softly, "for not trying to be her, for just being you." The next 2 weeks were unlike anything Nia had experienced. Thomas courted her with a combination of old-world formality and frontier practicality that made her heart ache in the best way. He brought her wildflowers he found growing in sheltered spots, their blooms impossibly bright against the snow. He carved her a set of combs from deer antler, the bone smooth and beautiful in her hands. He asked her opinions on ranch decisions and actually listened when she answered, implementing her suggestions about rotating pastures and treating a sick cow. In the evenings, after the children were in bed, they sat together by the fire. Thomas asked questions about Apache culture, struggling with pronunciations, but trying. Nia taught him about the significance of the 4 directions, about how Apache marriages were conducted, about the responsibilities of a husband in her culture. In Apache way, husband must provide for family, yes, but also must listen to wife, must respect her counsel. Apache women have much power in family decisions. We are not property. We are partners. "I can do that," Thomas said. "I want to do that." "Good, because I have many opinions and I not keep them quiet," Thomas laughed. "I've noticed. It's one of the things He stopped, the words catching in his throat. One of the things I love about you." He said it quickly, as if afraid he would lose his courage. "I know it soon. I know we're still figuring this out, but I need you to know. I love you, Nia. Not in spite of your strength or your opinions or your Apache heritage, because of all of it, all of you." Nia felt tears prick her eyes. "I am starting to love you too. Is frightening. I did not think I would feel this again after I lose my husband. Did not think any man would want broken Apache woman with half-breed son. You're not broken. You're the strongest person I've ever met." Thomas took her hands. "And Ka is a gift. A brave, smart, kind boy who deserves every chance at happiness. I meant what I said. When we marry, he becomes my son. Fully, legally, with all the rights and protections that come with being a Bridger." The wedding was set for 2 weeks after the proposal, just days before the scheduled court hearing. If they were legally married, Whitmore's accusations of immoral cohabitation would be meaningless. But there was a problem. No pastor in town would agree to perform the ceremony. They all cited various excuses, moral objections, pressure from their congregations. Even the circuit preacher Thomas had hoped would help sent word that he could not in good conscience unite a white man and an Apache woman in holy matrimony. "We'll do it without a preacher then," Thomas said, pacing the kitchen in frustration. "We'll just sign papers, make it legal that way." "But you want real wedding. I can see it in your eyes. You want to honor Anna's memory with proper ceremony." "I want to marry you? The how doesn't matter." But it did matter. Nia could see it did. So she made a decision. "I send message to reservation. Ask if Apache elder will come. Perform Apache ceremony. Then we find judge sign papers, make it legal in white law too. 2 ceremonies, both worlds honored. You think they'd come Apache elders here? I do not know, but I can ask." She sent word with a traveling trader who moved between the reservation and the settlements. 3 days later, to everyone's surprise, the trader returned with unexpected company. An elderly Apache man rode into the ranch yard, his granddaughter beside him. His name was Goyawe, and his face was a map of wrinkles, each line telling a story of survival and loss and endurance. His eyes were sharp and assessing as they swept over the ranch the children who emerged to stare Thomas standing on the porch. He spoke in Apache, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Nia translated her own voice unsteady. He says he heard about the Apache woman who lives with white rancher, who cares for white children. He came to see if this is true, to see if white man is worthy. Thomas descended the stairs slowly, stopping a respectful distance from Goyawe. Tell him I am honored by his presence. Tell him I hope to prove myself worthy, though I know I have much to answer for. The conversation that followed was long and difficult. Goyao asked hard questions about Thomas's past as a scout, about Fort Apache, about why he thought he deserved to marry an Apache woman when men like him had destroyed so many Apache lives. Thomas answered honestly, his words translated by Nia even when they damned him. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot bring back those who died because I led soldiers to them. All I can do is try to be better, to raise my children to see Apache people as human, to honor this woman who has given me and my family more than we deserve. Goyawe was silent for a long time. Then he spoke again, and Nia translated with tears streaming down her face. He says our people have suffered greatly at the hands of white soldiers, that he lost his own son to men like you once were, that every day he wakes with the weight of that loss. But he also says that the world is changing, that we must change with it or die. That if this marriage is built on respect and truth, if you truly honor Apache ways and teach your children to do the same, then perhaps it is a bridge. Perhaps it is the beginning of healing. Does that mean he'll perform the ceremony? Thomas asked. He says he will, but first you must prove yourself. You must undergo trial. What kind of trial? Goyawe explained through Nia. Thomas would have to fast for 1 day and 1 night. He would have to demonstrate his willingness to learn Apache ways by participating in a sweat lodge ceremony. He would have to receive Goyawe's blessing, which would only be given if the elder judged him sincere. I'll do it, Thomas said without hesitation. Whatever is required. The next 24 hours tested Thomas in ways he had not anticipated. The fasting was difficult but manageable. The sweat lodge, conducted in a structure Goyawe and his granddaughter built near the creek, was brutal. The heat was crushing the smoke thick and choking. Goyawe chanted in Apache, calling to the spirits, asking them to judge Thomas's heart. Thomas endured it all, emerging hours later, weak and shaking, but determined. He had seen visions in the smoke and heat. Anna smiling at him, giving her blessing. His children grown and strong. And Nia standing beside him through years of struggle and joy. Goyawe looked at him with something approaching respect. You survive. Now we see if you understand. He asked Thomas questions about what he had learned of Apache culture, about the significance of the 4 directions, about the responsibilities of a husband to his wife and her people, about how he would teach his children to honor both their white heritage and their Apache stepmother's culture. Thomas answered as best he could, stumbling over some pronunciations, getting some details wrong, but his sincerity was evident, his commitment clear. Finally, Goyawe nodded. I will perform ceremony. I will bless this marriage. But I warn you, white man, if you break your promises, if you dishonor this woman or teach your children to despise Apache ways, the spirits will know, and there will be consequences. I understand, Thomas said, and I accept. The wedding was set for 2 days hence, but before it could happen, Whitmore made his final play. It happened at dawn. Nia woke to the sound of horses, many horses, coming fast. She ran to the window and felt her blood go cold. Whitmore rode at the head of a group of at least a dozen men. Some she recognized from town. Others were rough-looking drifters, the kind who hired themselves out for violence. One carried a torch despite the early morning light. Thomas was already moving, pulling on clothes, grabbing his rifle. Get the children. Lock yourselves in the storm cellar. Don't come out until I say. No. Nia was pulling on her own clothes, her mind racing. They come for me. If I hide, they burn house to find me. I face them. Nia, you want to be husband, then trust me as partner. We face this together. They woke the children, sent them to the cellar anyway, despite their protests, all except Eliza, who refused to hide. I'm 13 years old enough to stand with my family. There was no time to argue. The riders were in the yard now, spreading out in a loose semicircle facing the house. Whitmore dismounted, his face set in grim determination. Bridger, send out the squaw. This ends today. Thomas stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. Nia stood beside him, unarmed but unafraid. Eliza positioned herself on Thomas's other side, her young face fierce. This is my land, Thomas said, his voice carrying across the yard. And you're trespassing. Turn around and leave before someone gets hurt. The only ones who will get hurt are you and yours if you don't hand over that Apache woman. Whitmore gestured to his men. We've got legal authority. Judge signed an order. She's to be removed to the reservation immediately pending investigation of corruption charges. I don't see any judge here. I see a bitter old man with a grudge and a bunch of hired thugs. Careful, Bridger. I'm giving you a chance to avoid bloodshed. Just give us the woman and we'll be on our way. No, the word came from Eliza loud and clear. She's not the woman. Her name is Nia, and she's part of our family. Whitmore's eyes narrowed. Little girl, you don't understand what's happening here. This Apache has corrupted your father's judgment, probably used some kind of witchcraft. We're here to help you. We don't need your help. Eliza's voice shook but held firm. Nia saved my brother's life. She takes care of us. She teaches us and protects us and loves us. And if you try to take her, you'll have to go through all of us. Movement in the yard. Samuel, Danny, and Ka emerged from behind the barn where they had apparently been hiding instead of going to the cellar. Samuel carried his father's old hunting rifle, Danny had a pitchfork, and Ka held a bow with an arrow nocked. Samuel, no, Thomas shouted. We're not hiding while they threaten our family. Samuel said, his voice breaking but determined. Nia's our mother now, and you don't take someone's mother. The situation was spiraling out of control. Nia could feel it in the way Whitmore's men shifted hands, moving toward weapons. One wrong move and children would die. She stepped forward off the porch, putting herself between the children and the armed men. Please, I will go. Just do not hurt the children. They are innocent. Nia, no. Thomas grabbed her arm. She switched to Apache, speaking rapidly. Listen to me. This is not fight we can win. Too many of them. Children will die. I go. Now we find another way later. You come for me at reservation. We fight with law, not guns, but I will not let these children die for me. Before Thomas could respond, before Whitmore could move forward to seize her, something unexpected happened. More riders crested the hill to the east. At first, Nia thought it was more of Whitmore's men. But as they drew closer, her heart nearly stopped. Apache warriors. 6 of them riding hard, wearing traditional clothing and carrying weapons. At their head was a face she recognized. Naiche, her dead husband's younger brother. The man who had condemned her for staying with white people. The man who had threatened her months ago. The warriors rode straight into the yard, positioning themselves between Whitmore's group and the house. Between the white men with guns and Nia's family. Whitmore's face went purple. What the hell is this? Naiche spoke in Apache, his voice carrying clear and strong. Nia translated automatically, her voice shaking with disbelief. He says they come to stand witness, to protect one of their own. He says I am Apache and no white man take Apache woman without cause. He says if you want to take me, you must go through them first. This is white man's land, Whitmore sputtered. You've got no authority here. Naiche spoke again. He says this land was Apache land long before white men came. He says blood spilled here is Apache blood too. He says we have authority of ancestors, authority of right. Thomas spoke up, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. And I say Nia is under my protection. She's about to become my wife. Anyone who touches her answers to me. One of the neighboring ranchers, who had remained friendly despite town pressure, rode into the yard then, along with 2 others. "And us. We stand with Bridger. This vigilante justice ends now, Whitmore." The captain looked around, taking in the scene. Apache warriors on one side, neighboring ranchers on the other, armed children willing to fight, and Thomas Bridger standing on his porch with a rifle and absolute conviction in his eyes. For the first time, Whitmore looked uncertain. This was not how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to roll in with overwhelming force and intimidation. Instead, he found himself facing an alliance he had not anticipated. White and Apache standing together. "This isn't over," he said, but there was less conviction in his voice now. "Yes, it is." Thomas lowered his rifle but did not set it aside. "You've lost Whitmore, not because I'm stronger or have more guns, but because people see through you now, see you for what you are. A bitter old man trying to relive a war that's already over. That war will never be over. Maybe not for you, but the rest of us are trying to build something new, something better than what was. You can either get on board or get out of the way, but you're not taking my family, not today, not ever." For a long moment, no one moved. The tension hung in the air like gunpowder waiting for a spark. Then Whitmore spat in the dirt and remounted his horse. "You're making a mistake, Bridger, all of you, mixing with savages pretending they're people. It'll end in blood and tears. Mark my words." He wheeled his horse and rode out, his men following. They watched until the group disappeared over the ridge. Then Naiche dismounted and walked over to Nia. He looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he spoke in Apache, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I was wrong about you. I thought you betrayed our people by living with white man. But I have watched from distance. I see how you live, how you honor Apache ways, how you teach white children to respect us. You build bridge, sister, bridge we need." He paused. "My brother, he would be proud of you. And I am sorry I made your path harder." Nia felt tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for coming, for standing with me. We are Apache. We stand with our own, even when our own walk difficult path." He looked at Thomas, switching to broken English. "You take care of her. You honor Apache ways like you promise, or I come back." "I understand," Thomas said. "And thank you for what you did here today." Naiche nodded once, then remounted. The warriors rode out as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving everyone stunned in their wake. The neighboring ranchers stayed for coffee, discussing what had just happened. The alliance that had formed here today was unprecedented. Fragile, certainly, but real. After they left, the family gathered in the front room. Everyone was shaking with adrenaline and relief. The twins clung to Nia. William wouldn't let go of her hand. Samuel and Danny and Ka sat close together, brothers in truth, now bonded by shared danger. "That was stupid," Thomas said to his sons, but his voice held no heat. "Incredibly, amazingly stupid. You could have been killed." "So could you," Samuel shot back. "So could Nia. We're a family. Families protect each other." Thomas looked at Nia over the children's heads. She looked back, and the understanding that passed between them needed no words. They had chosen each other, and in doing so had created something bigger than either of them alone. A family that transcended blood and race, and all the things the world said mattered. 2 days later, they were married. Goyahweh conducted the Apache ceremony at dawn, with the first light breaking over the eastern hills. He had brought sacred items, sweetgrass for burning, a blanket woven in traditional patterns by his granddaughter, herbs and stones with spiritual significance. The family gathered in a circle, not just Thomas's children and Nia and Ka, but also the neighboring ranchers who had stood with them and Goyahweh's granddaughter. Witnesses from both worlds. Goyahweh spoke in Apache, his voice carrying the weight of ages. Nia translated for those who did not understand. "He says marriage is sacred, not just joining of two people, but joining of two paths, two ways of being in world. He says husband must provide and protect, yes, but also must listen and respect. Wife must support and nurture, yes, but also must speak truth and stand strong. Goyahweh wrapped Thomas and Niya together in the blanket, binding them symbolically. He blessed them with smoke from the sweet grass, calling on the spirits of the four directions to watch over them. He placed his hands on their joined hands and spoke prayers in a voice that trembled with age and power. Then he called Ka forward. The boy approached hesitantly, unsure of his place in the ceremony. Goyahweh placed Ka's hand in Thomas's and spoke words that made Niya's heart swell. He says that in taking Niya as wife, you also take Ka as son, not stepson, son. In Apache tradition, the bond is complete and unbreakable. Ka is your child now as much as the 5 you fathered. Blood matters less than choice. Choice matters less than love. Do you accept this responsibility? Do you claim this boy as yours? Thomas looked down at Ka, at the boy's upturned face full of desperate hope. He had been waiting his whole life for a father to claim him, not out of obligation or pity, but out of genuine love. I do, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. Ka is my son. I claim him as mine. I will protect him and provide for him and love him as I love all my children. This I swear before all witnesses and all spirits. Ka made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Thomas pulled him into a tight hug, and the boy clung to him like he might disappear. Around them the other children pressed close, creating a circle of family. Eliza had tears streaming down her face. Samuel was grinning. The twins were bouncing with barely contained excitement. Danny and William held hands, both looking awed by the ceremony's beauty. Goyahweh spoke one final blessing, his words flowing over them like water. Then he stepped back. It is done. You are married in the eyes of the spirits and the Apache people. Walk in beauty together. Honor both your worlds, and may your children be the bridge that heals old wounds. The white ceremony followed in the afternoon, conducted by a justice of the peace from a neighboring county who cared more about law than prejudice. It was shorter, more formal, focused on legalities rather than spirituality. Do you, Thomas Bridger, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Naya, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Arizona, I pronounce you man and wife. Thomas kissed her longer and deeper than he had in the Apache ceremony. A kiss of promise and passion, and the beginning of a new chapter. The celebration that followed was unlike anything the ranch had seen. The neighboring ranchers brought food. Goyahweh's granddaughter taught the children an Apache dance. Someone produced a fiddle, and there was music. The children ran and played and laughed unburdensome for the first time in months. As the sun set, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of gold and rose, Nia stood on the porch with Thomas, watching the celebration inside through the window. No regrets, Thomas asked, his arm around her waist. No regrets. You... Only that I didn't do this sooner. He pulled her closer. Though I suspect we're not out of the woods yet, Whitmore won't give up this easily. He was right. The territorial governor arrived a week later, alerted by Whitmore's continued complaints. He came with a small entourage and an air of stern judgment. But what he found was not what Whitmore had led him to expect. The children were healthy, well-fed, and remarkably educated. Samuel could recite poetry in English and track a deer in Apache style. Eliza ran the household with the efficiency of a woman twice her age, while also studying mathematics and literature. The twins spoke basic Apache and could identify dozens of medicinal plants. Danny was learning to break horses using gentle methods Nia had taught him. And William, the boy who had been silent for so long, talked constantly, telling anyone who would listen about his mama Nia, and how she taught him it was okay to feel things. The governor spent 3 days at the ranch observing and interviewing. He spoke with each child privately, He inspected the house, the grounds, the livestock. He watched how Thomas and Nia worked together, how they made decisions jointly, how they balanced Apache traditions with frontier practicality. On the final evening, he requested a private meeting with Thomas and Nia. "I'll be honest," he said, settling into a chair in the front room. "I came here expecting to find evidence supporting Captain Whitmore's claims, expected to find children neglected or indoctrinated with savage ways, expected to find a situation requiring intervention." He paused, looking at them both. "But what I've found instead is a family. Unconventional, certainly. Unprecedented, absolutely. But a family nonetheless. These children are not just surviving, they're thriving. They're learning skills most children ever acquire. They're being taught to see beyond the prejudices of their culture." Whitmore, who had insisted on attending the meeting, protested loudly. "But she's Apache. She's teaching them to respect savages. She's corrupting their moral development." "She's teaching them a second language," the governor said firmly. "She's teaching them survival skills that may one day save their lives. She's teaching them that people are people regardless of race. These are not corruptions. These are gifts." He turned back to Thomas and Nia. "I understand you face considerable opposition from the town, that businesses refuse to serve you, that your children are ostracized at school." "Yes," Thomas said, "but we manage. We find ways." "I imagine you do. You strike me as remarkably resourceful people." The governor stood. "I'm going to do something I don't do often. I'm going to go against the recommendations of a respected military officer. Captain Whitmore, your complaints are dismissed. This is a legal marriage. These are well cared for children. What this family does on their own property is their business, and I will not have territorial resources wasted on personal vendettas." Whitmore's face went apoplectic. "This is an outrage. You're condoning miscegenation. You're setting a dangerous precedent." "I'm following the law," the governor said coldly, "the law that says a man can marry whom he chooses and raise his children as he sees fit, provided no harm is being done. And I see no harm here, only a family trying to build something good in difficult circumstances." He looked at Whitmore with barely concealed disgust. "Your vendetta ends here, Captain. If I hear of you harassing this family again, I'll have you brought up on charges. Am I understood?" Whitmore stormed out without another word. The governor watched him go, then turned back to Thomas and Nia. "That man has more demons than most. What happened at Fort Apache twisted something inside him, made him need an enemy to blame for his own failures." He paused. "But that's not your problem anymore. Live your lives, raise your children, and know that you have at least one person in territorial government who sees what you're building here as worthy." After he left, the family gathered again in the front room. The threat was gone. Not completely. The town would still be hostile. Life would still be hard. But the immediate danger had passed. The children collapsed in relief, talking over each other, laughing and crying. Thomas pulled Nia into his arms and held her like he was afraid she might disappear. "It's over," he whispered. "It's finally over." "No," Nia said. "It is just beginning. But we face it together now, as husband and wife, as family." That night in the room that was finally truly theirs, Thomas and Nia came together as husband and wife for the first time. It was tender and awkward and beautiful in the way of all first times between people learning each other's bodies. Afterward, lying in the darkness with Thomas's arm around her, Nia felt peace settle over her like a blanket. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose, of belonging. She was Apache. She was barren. She was scarred by violence and loss. And she was also wife, mother, partner, bridge between worlds. All of it was true. All of it mattered. In the years that followed, the ranch became something of a legend. Samuel studied medicine, blending two healing traditions. Eliza married a man raised on tolerance. The twins became scouts and peacemakers. Danny ran the ranch with his father's principles. William taught traumatized children to speak again. And Ka became a lawyer fighting for justice that knew no racial boundaries. Each child carried forward what they had learned in this house. That family was choice, not blood. That bridges could be built across the deepest chasms. That love, quiet and steady, could survive anything. But those stories belong to the future. On this night, with snow falling gently outside and the house warm and safe around them, Thomas and Ni Ya simply held each other and slept. They had chosen each other against all odds, had built something beautiful from broken pieces, had created a family not bound by blood but by something stronger: choice, commitment, love. The world would continue to tell them it was impossible, that Apache and white could not live together in peace, that old wounds were too deep to heal, but every day they proved the world wrong, not through grand gestures, but through small daily acts of love and respect and stubborn determination to see each other as fully human. And slowly, almost invisibly, the world began to change around them. Other families followed their example. Other children learned that people were people regardless of skin or culture. It was not enough to heal all wounds, but it was a start, a bridge, a possibility. The snow continued to fall. The night deepened, and in a small ranch house on the edge of two worlds, love settled in for the long fight ahead. Quiet, steady, unbreakable. The end.